Hello everyone, welcome to Grow Your Future with Luxland. I am the beast from the east and this is the predator of property.
Oh, of course.
We have the queen of business.
Oh no.
And the boss of transformations.
All right.
How good's that?
That was a good intro.
I'm energized now.
Yeah. I'm ready.
I just had a coffee. Welcome, Hayley.
Thank you. Thank you
welcome.
for having me. I'm very excited. I'm nervous.
So excited to
but I'm
have
excited.
you on. Finally, it's been a little bit of a challenge booking Hayley up to this podcast because you're so busy, right?
Yes, and you're so busy.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to align schedules.
Yep.
And finally, paths have crossed, which is nice.
Certainly have. So today we're talking about transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you are apparently the queen of that. So,
Apparently.
The boss.
One part
the
of
boss.
The boss of
transformation.
transformations.
Jade was the queen.
Jade's the queen.
Jade's the queen. Always
Hayley's the
queen.
boss.
So give us a little bit of a rundown, Hayley, on yourself. I mean, where you've come from as entrepreneurial and business wise, you know, what you're doing with yourself today and what has earned you the spot on tonight's podcast.
I suppose, I'll start where it all kind of started for me and the kind of transformation one way and then back the other, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Through year 12 and stresses and everything like that, I was really undecided as to what I was going to do when I finished school. I played a lot of sport and then that kind of went on hold with injuries and everything all through year 12. Then, transforming into, first year uni student, and everyone calls it the fresh of 10. Mine was a lot more than that because it was like the first year of freedom. It's just like with an injury, not playing the sport that I was playing all the time that kept me fit, I kind of headed down this downward spiral. And it wasn't until kind of my third year of uni that I kind of realised it was actually a number of things that contributed to it. But it just hit me and I was like, I was watching Biggest Loser and there was a girl on there who was the same height as me. She was a year different from me and she weighed less than I did and she was on a show to lose weight. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like this is not okay.
Were you angry because you weren't on the show?
No, not angry. I think for me it was more of a wake-up call because for me I kind of just always made excuses for myself and I was like, oh whatever, and I had a good group of friends and whatever, so they kind of liked me for me. But it wasn't until I kind of saw that and I was like, hang on a second, she's on a show getting help about her weight and her stats are pretty much the same as mine. So that's when it kind of...
How old were you then? Did you say you were in uni?
Yeah, 19.
Okay,
19.
How old are you now?
I'm 26.
26.
Yeah.
So not that long ago.
No, not that long ago. And then from there, I kind of just started taking small changes. I just changed what I ate, kind of just made little tweaks because I was still at uni. I stopped going out as much because I was in my final year of uni and just kind of wanted to get it all done and over with and come back to Sydney because I went to uni in Bathurst. And then from there, I just kind of started making really small, healthy habits that I kind of continued to stick to over the, course of until now, even to this day, I stick to those. I'd get up before I had to be at uni, go to the gym, and I really like the morning because in the morning the only people that are up are people that choose to be up, not people who have to be up. And I think making a choice to be up is really important because, you've mentally said to yourself, I want to be up, I want to be doing this. You're not complaining about being up, whereas people at like 7 or 8 o'clock are kind of complaining that they're up and they're awake and, I've had to come to the gym like it's a chore. And then from there, over about a 4.5 year period, I lost just over 60 kilos.
Wow.
Where
So you went from what? So you went from 130...
So I pretty much...
135 was it?
Lost myself.
Now you're at your lightest now? Or?
Yes, I'm at my lightest now. Yeah. Before I was doing Iron Woman and all of that, competing and everything like that. But now I feel like I'm definitely fitter mentally, having gone through it all, but also physically because I've managed to find a balance between work and, fitting in what I love, which is training and being healthy.
So when you were a kid, let's take it back before uni, right? Because uni is where you said you had that downward spiral. As a kid growing up, were you... were you overweight as a kid or?
Nah, never. I mean, I was always in sport, always played sport. When we moved to Australia when I was 12 from the UK, obviously the UK is a lot less of an active country, I find. People aren't as active because of the weather, and it's not, everyone kind of does things inside. So as a young kid, you're still doing things active, but it's in a different way that Australians do it. And then I find that, you know, growing up, like I was in sport, school sport. I played, you know, touch, water polo. I did nippers, and then that transferred into like Iron Woman on the beach and everything like that. So I was always really active.
It was that university lifestyle.
It was trying to fit in, I think, was the biggest thing, because you go from an environment where you're so comfortable at school, you know, you're the big fish in the little pond in year 12, and you're like, you know, I know what I'm doing, I've got my life, you know, sorted, and you kind of have that full understanding that you're like, I've got this. And then you get into uni, and there are people that have been there for like 4, 5, 6, 7 years, even more, and you're meeting, like I went to uni and I knew nobody. Like there was not one person at the uni that I knew. So it was like starting from scratch again. And for me, that was so daunting. And I'd moved my whole life. Like I hadn't stayed in the same spot because my dad's in the military. So I've always moved. So going to uni was just natural for me. But then it's just trying to fit in and trying to create that group of friends so that you're not the odd one out. And by doing that, you know, led me to drink more than I would normally and eat the shit that I wouldn't normally eat. And, you know, it just kind of forces you into that environment that you're just subconsciously doing it. You know, people would have movie nights and you're sitting there eating ice cream and chocolates, and I wouldn't do that on my own at home.
It's funny you say that you did all of these things to fit in and to conform, right? Where, you know, we're constantly talking about on this podcast to stand out and always do things differently, go against the herd, right? And I think you have to go through times like that, because I've been through times like that where you just want to fit in, right? I grew up on the Central Coast, and like I was the only brown kid in school, so I always tried to do what all the Aussies did, you know, and I just tried to fit in. But now, being in my 30s, right, I don't conform anymore. Like I go against the herd. I do things differently to the point where people don't like me for it, but I like me for it, right? And you kind of have to go through that hump, those experiences of it's actually detrimental to you if you conform, right? Because that's what you went through.
Yeah, and I feel like also at a young age you're trying to figure out who you are and what it is you stand for. And when you go through something like that at whatever age you go up, whether you go through it, you know, in your 20s or your 30s or whenever, you've got to kind of go through the opposite to know what it is you want. And it's like relationships, you know, you've got to experience those shit relationships to know exactly what it is you want. And then from there on in, you kind of set yourself up for success by saying, no, I don't want that, I want something else. And, you know, now I'm, you know, not scared to say, yes, I'm not coming out for a drink because I'm going to go train, or I'm going to go meet my girlfriends because that's more important to me than going out for a drink with people that I don't really know or get along with.
It's about having that emotional, mental fitness. There was something I was going to say there about Mark and relationships and trying the other side, but I thought I'd just leave it.
I think we've had enough of
with the transformation side of things, though, the transformation side of things, I did the exact same thing back in 2015. I had a business where it was the only thing that I could do to keep the business alive, right? It was in the fitness industry, and as we all know, the fitness industry is very superficial, right? It's very, very superficial, where it's just about looks. That's all it is. So that's all I focused on. To be honest with you, that's all I focused on. I was overweight, and you know I was unhealthy, and I performed. I think it was like 13 or 14 weeks. Yeah.
Yes, I think 14 weeks. Yeah.
Transformation of getting down from, I think it was 20+% body fat down to down to 9%.
Yeah. Wow.
So I did that, and I was really proud of myself, and we pulled in a lot of business, and it was great. But it wasn't the physical transformation that really got to me. It was the mental fitness and that emotional intelligence that I was able to gain.
You trimmed the fat off your brain, didn't you?
That's right, because as you're trimming the fat off your body, you tend to have to trim the fat off your brain, because you have to instill discipline. You know, you have to eat right, you have to get up early, like you just said. And those habits that I sort of had to come up with during that 13, 14 weeks of the transformation has now stuck with me for life.
Yeah.
So I'm up at 5 a.m. every day, right? I'm still doing the exercising. I'm still eating the way I do when I did the transformation. And that's, we're 3-4 years on now. And that alone has changed my life.
Absolutely.
Right? And mentally now, I could, like you were just saying, you can say no to things a lot easier, right? Because most of the time, what's happening in society is that people are trying to get you to do things, right? They're wanting you to follow them like a sheep, right? No one wants you to be a wolf because it's intimidating.
Absolutely.
Right? So if for example, if you're out and you're with a bunch of friends and everyone is eating junk food and having a drink, right? And you say no, everyone's going to try and influence you to
100%.
Because they feel better about it too.
Yep.
Well, it makes them feel better.
Because they feel guilty.
Because if they feel guilty, I say this to all of my clients, I think that's one of the biggest struggles that they face is, but everybody else is having pizza. And it's like, who cares?
Yep.
Like, stand your ground. Like, why are you doing this? And I think that comes back to the reason about, a lot of people go, how do I start a transformation? And for me, it's not about, a transformation isn't a destination. It's that small milestones that you continue to make. Like, I'm still transforming, but it's not a weight loss journey anymore. It's a fitness journey, and you constantly change those small goals to get to where you need to be. And for me, my clients constantly say, but we've got pizza at work on Thursdays. And I was like, okay, but what's your goal? Not the rest of the work, not the rest of anyone around you. What is your goal? Why have you come to me asking for help? And then they're like, oh, well, I want to lose weight for this, or I want to be fitter for this. And then you kind of bring them back to reality and go, okay, well, is that going to be, is that going to impact your success in your goal that you want? And, they'll turn around and they'll say, yeah, it will. And then it kind of just puts it in perspective. And I think a lot of times people can't put it into perspective around their goals, and they're like, oh, one thing won't matter. But what I find is making those healthy habits along the way will help you then reinforce the rest of your journey as you continue into life.
I think so. Definitely, you're definitely right. And I think what I find, whether people are going through physical transformations or in life in general, in business, whatever their journey might be, often I hear a lot of people go, well, I haven't started yet and I'm going to do this, and next week or the week after, next year is my year. And it's like, well, how important is this to you?
Diet starts Monday.
Yeah, we always hear diet
we
starts
all heard
Monday.
that. Diet
We've
starts
probably
Monday.
all said that. I've probably said that last month. But like, do you know what I mean? You have to really want it. Like, how bad is this dream of yours or this goal? How important is it to you? Is it affecting your health? Well, then you have to get to it straight away. And
that actually leads me on to a question, Jade, which is it kind of includes you. But both of you, I find, have a very similar lifestyle. You've got the full-time career, and then you've also got the entrepreneurial side. You guys are going extremely hard on both fronts. So how do you find, Hayley, time to work on yourself personally, like in regards to personal development and stuff like that? Because you've got your business going, you've got 9 to 5 happening, and then you've got to separate yourself from all of that, don't you?
Totally. But I also find that it's, a lot of the times, and Jade, I'm sure you'll all agree with me, a lot of the times it's about being, Jade and I were just talking about it before, it's about being efficient, and it's about where and when you can combine two things that complement each other. Do that if you don't have the time. I find that, I spend a lot of time driving to and from work, or commuting to and from work, or to and from the gym. And I find that if I'm listening to podcasts then, instead of just aimless ramble on the radio or music, then I can fit in my stuff then. And then I also find that having those dedicated areas, and just say to yourself, commit yourself to a goal. Again, that small goal for that week. I've committed to reading 12 books in 12 months. Like, that's my goal.
That's a great goal.
Because I'd forgotten reading. Like, I'd forgotten that I loved reading so much, and not necessarily getting lost in like fictional books, but actual like development books. And I've read so many great ones. I'm actually up to my 5th book at the moment, so I'm a month ahead of myself. But I'm just gonna, that was my goal, and I'm like, okay, it just kind of kept me on track. And then instead of sitting on my phone for an hour at night, scrolling through Instagram like I normally would, I pick up my book, I've moved my phone charger to the other side of the room so that I have to physically plug my phone in before I get into bed, and then I read for an hour. And that's how I've been able to fit things in, is kind of work out the efficiencies in your life. If you're noticing that you're spending half an hour scrolling through Instagram whilst you're walking on the treadmill in the morning, instead of that, take a book with you or listen to a podcast or something like that, and combine two things that will really complement each other.
I've got a great rule with phones in the gym. I just put it in the locker.
100%.
Right, and like Jade's slowly starting to catch on to that, because you actually save a lot of time.
Yeah.
But
it's the only time you have to yourself, really, before the chaos in your life starts.
Yeah,
It?
you do need to clear your head, and that's what we use exercise for. It's a form of therapy.
Definitely.
Getting back to, I think, with why you implement all of these habits and what motivates you, I think it's more so how big your purpose is. Right? Like I've seen, for example, Mark, hasn't done a physical transformation because he always looks great, but he's done.
So many compliments.
But in terms of mentally, what I've seen out of Mark, right? Because this podcast is about not just about physically changing yourself.
Totally.
It's about mentally changing yourself, and the progress that I've seen out of Mark in the last how long have you been with us, Mark? Over 12 months, just over 12 months. Where he's been at mentally to where he is now, and I've forced habits onto him, because he didn't know, he didn't know what to do, right? And I've forced habits onto him, like the reading, for example.
Totally.
Logging the inefficiencies, right? So you can fill that in with things that are going to make you more productive, right?
Yeah.
But just in a 12-month period, which isn't that long, like we all know 12 months just goes like that.
Totally.
Right? It goes so quickly. And the improvement that this man has made is unbelievable, right? So you think about that, if you compound that over 10 years, like I just told you about my transformation, which is back in 15, which is 3 years ago, right? And that's where I really started to take off. So when I turned 30, that's where I started really going hard with personal development, my training, physical training, mental training, everything, right? Education. And what I've done in the last 3 years, I've actually impressed myself. So if we think about the reason why what gets me up every morning is the purpose, right? It's the purpose behind it, because that purpose far outweighs any stress that you have in your life, and it just gets you up off your ass and it gets you going, right? And I think you had a greater purpose than just looking good.
Totally. And I think that's the biggest misconception in today's society, especially with the fitness industry, as you said. I find it so ironic, and I will rant for days about the fact that it's called the fitness industry, because there is not one person in that fitness industry who can run fit. They're not physically fit or physically well. They don't look after themselves physically.
But they look fit.
They look fit.
They look fantastic.
They look fit.
Aesthetically, but fitness-wise, if you look
On
up
the
the
inside,
definition of fitness, it's not looking fit. It's being, aerobically fit. And I find that to be the biggest misconception, is that a lot of the times people can get so caught up in going, you must have a routine to be successful, and using the word routine and throwing it around and saying, it needs to happen, you need to have routine. And I found, being away with work for the last 5 weeks, I've not had one day off in 5 weeks from physically working. And for me, routine, when it's thrown out the window, the thing that's left is habits, not routine. And I think so many people can misunderstand or misinterpret the word routine, and being, I need to set myself a routine, I need to get up in the morning, I need to, set myself, I need to make coffee, I then need to do this, and they need to have that routine. But what I find is when that routine is thrown out the window, they're then sitting there going, fuck, what do I do now? And for me, it's not so much routine as it is habits, and setting yourself those healthy habits that will help contribute. Because then, regardless of your routine, because as no 2 days are the same, you'll try and have the same routine every day, where you'll try and incorporate your gym and your eating well. But that's not routine, that's habit.
I love that, because habits are a thing that are very hard to implement as you get older, right? So Mark's good friend Ty Lopez, for example, he targets people between 18 years old and 25 years old. The reason being is because it's easier to teach these people habits between 18 and 25. From 25 onwards, right, it's harder to change.
Totally.
So the only way these people learn from 25 onwards is through pain and trauma. That's how he explains it, right? So people who, for example, form bad habits when they're younger, then they go to 25, lead an unhealthy lifestyle, and they get to 30, like I did, right? And wake up and go, oh my God, like, I'm fat, I'm unhealthy, I'm unfit, I'm not happy with myself, I need to make a change, right? And it took me to get to that point, right, to go, right, what do I got to do, right? So those habits now are easier to kind of maintain because I'm still in my early 30s, right?
Totally.
But imagine for someone who gets to say 45, 55, who hasn't seen a gym before, right? And then all of a sudden, their wife leaves them or their husband leaves them, right? They're not healthy enough or fit enough to play with their kids or whatever that breaking point is, right? When you get to that breaking point, that's where you've got to form those new habits. But sometimes it can be too late because that breaking point, if it comes at such a late, and we never like to say it's too late, right? You can always change your habits, but it's harder.
Totally. But it's also harder to maintain a habit. And that's why you see so many personal trainers offering 8-week programs and 12-week programs. But my whole purpose and what I don't ever take someone on for a short period of time. I'm there for the long haul, like until you pretty much drop dead, right? Like I'm there to change your life. And whether you're paying me for not, whether you're paying me or not, I'm there to support you that whole journey, right? Because the thing is, for 8 to 12 weeks, it's easy to keep a habit because you go, oh, there's an end date. But then what happens is, people have been following this religious program for 8 to 12 weeks.
The body adapts.
Their body adapts, they see changes and they go, woohoo, I can go back to my old ways. And they haven't learned anything because they've not been making any decisions for themselves. They've been following this book for 8 to 12 weeks and they've pretty much followed it like a puppy, and then they've got to the end and they've gone, now what? And they haven't learned anything. So what I'm all about is educating people so that they don't need an 8 to 12 week program every 8 to 12 weeks. So that they can, I've just been away for 5 weeks and all my clients received a program, but it's programs of exercises that they've done before. And what they've done is I didn't give them a schedule. I gave them their week and I taught them to map it out because that is a healthy habit. By planning your training sessions, they're committing to it by putting pen to paper. And it's not giving them a schedule, but outlining to them the basics for them to make the decision on their own.
Yep, I love it.
So you, just to take it back a step, right? We're talking your business.
Yeah.
Right? So you mentioned your clients and what you do for them.
Outside of my 9 to 5 job.
What is your business and what do you do?
So I have been for a while training clients, educating clients, and I find that I'm so much more of an educator than I am a trainer because I feel like trainers now, people are so hesitant to go with a personal trainer because it's a money-making scheme.
And that's the easy part, right?
Totally. The easy part, you can do your Cert 3 and 4 and just cruise through life, and that's what 99% of trainers do. But what I feel is a huge gap in the market is that education process around teaching people so that they don't need a personal trainer. Because what happens if they get up and move to LA? What happens if, they can no longer afford a personal trainer? Because then that goes by the wayside and they're back at square one.
Yep.
So for me, I have clients that I train outside of my 9 to 5, and I put 9 to 5 in brackets because no job really is ever 9 to 5 if you love what you do. So Monday to Friday, and for the last 5 weeks as well, I've been away with my normal job, which is in marketing and events. And then outside of that, I write programs. I have face-to-face sessions with my clients, educating them about how to create that healthy lifestyle, and lifestyle being longevity until pretty much you're gone, until you no longer exist. So it's about maintaining those healthy lifestyles, and really teaching people the things that I've learned over my transformation, and then also listening to them as well, because there are so many other and new problems coming through all the time going, I've got this problem, how do I solve it? And I'll never give them a solution, but I'll show them some ways to kind of figure it out. Or, you know, if someone's struggling with the way they feel like they're eating too much food, you know, I'm not going to turn around and say, well, you know, for your first meal you should have chicken and broccoli, your second meal you should have chicken and broccoli, because that's boring as and no one wants to maintain that every single day, and they won't. Because if you travel, believe it or not, you can't get chicken and broccoli at every single restaurant you go to, and you know, it's just not realistic. So for me, it's, you know, if they're struggling with how much they're eating or they can't control their food, then maybe it's implementing a strategy like intermittent fasting that's going to give them a kind of strategy around eating. Intermittent fasting isn't a diet, it's just a way to eat, and it kind of, if it suits that person, then that might come in handy with them. So it's about giving them the right tactics and strategies to be able to tackle the things in life that they deal with every single day.
I like that. Like it's that's amazing, because so many personal trainers out there are so fixated on those 8-week programs, 10-week programs, and I guess they kind of want them to go off the rails a little bit, so they come back and sign back on again.
That's the whole cycle, right?
Keeps them in business.
It keeps them in business, and I think for me, I've always said, if you ever rely on a job for money, it's a job. It's no longer a passion.
And it's short term,
Well, it's you know, you've got to, like, I love what I do, and with me educating my clients on you know, their lifestyle and how to change it and how to tweak it to make the best versions of themselves, you know, I ask them what their budget is. If they can't afford to pay me that month, I say, don't worry about it. Because my whole purpose is all about helping people and being that person that I needed 5 years ago or 6 years ago, to stand there and kind of hold their hand through it and say, hey, everything is going to be fine. Like, I came out of it and I'm not dead. Like, this workout's not going to kill you.
Yep.
You know, eating healthy and saying no to a couple of drinks here and there, or a couple of, you know, donuts here and there, but also having a donut every now and then is not going to kill you, and you're not going to go backwards by having one donut. I think being able to find that realistic balance in everyday life, you know, you can't say no to everything, and as soon as you cut out everything, then your body's going to crave it more and more and more, because that's all you think about. When you go, okay, I'm cutting out chocolate, that's all you can think about. You know, it's like saying, you know, don't think about a red shoe.
I'm thinking about a red shoe right now.
Yeah, that's all you can think
about it.
But that's all you can think about.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a mental game, right? And I think for me, it's about finding that healthy balance. And, you know, I managed to do it. Many other people, Jade manages to do it. You do it. You know, everyone finds that balance for themselves, but it's about helping them find that balance.
It's about education, and it's in everything that we do, and it's all around us. I think education for the win, guys. That's what I'm saying, because we do it here at Luxland. There are so many businesses or business models out there like this or similar, but we're educating here. So we're making property millionaires every single month, and we're not doing it by taking their business and just running with it. We're educating them along the way so they can survive and they can go and make money for themselves. And we do it at the salon as well, you know. Totally. We don't just do people's hair, and you know, it's an education process, and I think that's where a lot of people are failing, or they don't want to put that effort in. Totally. It's too hard. It's like, I can just do this and make a quick win here, and not worry about, you know, the real reasons why we do it.
It's like that famous saying, they say, you know, educate your staff so that they can leave and grow, but treat them well enough so that they don't.
Absolutely.
And I think that for me is like the fundamentals of what I do outside of my normal job, which is making these people feel like they're in a safe zone. You know, they are. They're talking to someone who's been through it, who's lived through it, and, you know, is there to help them along the way. I'm not there to tell you what to do. You know, I'm on call pretty much all the time. Like, I'll get texts being like, I'm at a restaurant, what can I eat? Or what should I eat? And I say, well, what are you going to eat? I said, what do you feel like eating? You know, I'll never go back to them and tell them straight away what I think that they should eat. Yeah, because you know, if they're craving red meat, then
you don't want to take it away from them.
Have a steak. It's not going to kill you. It's, you know, if you haven't had red meat in 2 weeks, then have red meat. Like, don't deprive yourself of anything. Just have everything in moderation.
Yeah, I love it.
I think that's amazing, that mindset that you have, because, like as Jade said, it's very similar to the Luxland model, where, you know, we're not just focused on one transaction. It's about the process, and it's about the educational learning that client can get and take away with them for the rest of their lives. So like our strategy is literally a 10, 20, 30, 40 year strategy, and we want to be there every step of the way alongside the client, and we're exactly the same. It's like if our client signs on with us but decides not to sign on with us for the following deal, we'll still stand by them.
Totally.
Because we're trying to build this culture and this community of, it's almost like a cult that we're trying to create here with this brand where people, they really embrace the brand, you know what I mean? And that's not just our staff, it's like our clients, it's our fans, and social media has really helped us. It really has. And, I looked through your social media briefly today, and what you've created as just a personal brand alone, it's amazing. The following that you have, there needs to be more women like you.
I agree.
Like
I
this,
definitely agree.
There's not enough of you, right? Because there are a lot of you, but there's not enough out there going, look, this is my story, right? I want to add value to anyone else that has gone through what I've gone through.
Totally.
So I'm exactly the same, right? Like I wish I had a czar 10 years ago. I never had a czar, right? I never had a czar. So you know what happened to me? I had to make the mistakes. I had to get robbed. I had to get ripped off. People stole from me. People made fun of me. It was a tough time, right? And Jade was with me the whole way. There was plenty of highs, but also a lot of lows, right? And I just wish I had we never really had social media like so strong back 10 years ago, right? So for me, like I was alone. I felt alone. But now, think about how many women, and even not just women, guys out there, right, who have gone through what you've gone through, that downward spiral, who are battling, who are struggling, right? And they want to come out of this hole. Right, back 10, 15 years ago, there's no one to kind of cling on to for help. Now, with the power of social media, right, they can message you.
Absolutely.
Right? I can message people who have gone through what I've gone through straight away and say, can you help me, please?
But it also works in a negative way as well, right? Like, because you've got people reaching out to the wrong people. And I think there was the most interesting article that I read about a week ago about this fake person that looked like a human and had been photoshopped and made she was a model, and she'd featured in all, I can't remember the brand, but I'll show you afterwards, and she was a completely fake person, but she was in all these branded shots wearing the jewelry and looking incredible. There were people, she had her own Instagram and she wasn't a real person, and she had millions and millions of followers and she didn't exist. And then,
what was it? Just like a 3D render?
It was a 3D render that had been beautifully polished with skin, and I will show you afterwards, because honestly changed it kind of fueled me even more to be, there are so many people out there who aren't qualified, who aren't real, who will post photos when they're laying in bed on a Sunday morning hungover, being like, hey guys, get to the gym this morning, and it's a photo that they took 4 days ago. No, like, in a world, I posted something a couple of days ago, and it's like, in a world where deceit is so relevant every single day, you have to go through, telling the truth is like a revolutionary act. Everyone's like, oh my God, she's so honest and she's so raw, but that's how more people should be.
Of course.
That's your currency now. Being authentic and true, that's your currency. The more true and authentic you are, the higher your currency level.
I think there's going to be a bit of an epidemic coming with social media, and it's blown up so much in recent years, which I've said repeatedly, and it's great, but it's scary because who's real and who's not, and there's so many people getting caught out, and this is why women, and I guess everyone anyone in professional services, anyone doing anything of service out there, helping others, as you just need to be as genuine, as authentic as possible, because that trust level is going to go down very, very quickly. And who do you trust? Like, if you want to go out there and lose a few pounds and, get fit, there are so many people out there. Like, who do you go to? You live in Bondi. What do I do? Where do I go?
Hayley.
Trust and
Now we
value.
know.
See, Hayley.
Trust
Hayley.
and value is the new inventory these days.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I find it so amazing. Like me myself, like if I was thinking, you know, put myself in a situation that I was in 6-7 years ago. Now, I would be one of those people buying all those ebooks, having no FaceTime with people. I'd be spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on trying to find a quick fix because these girls swear by it, and these girls say, you know, this is the booty program that changed me, or that made, you know, me have the booty that I've got. And for me, I know firsthand, working in or seeing the industry, that it's not true, and these girls don't follow their own
It
programs.
hasn't worked for me, so yeah.
What do you mean?
Have you got any more spots available?
No, and I just find that, you know, they'll constantly endorse it because they've got hundreds and thousands of followers. They'll constantly endorse it because people follow them currently because of the way that they look, not because of the value that they provide. And then so when people say, you know, I want to look like her, and then she offers an ebook, instant dollars.
It is, and it's another thing that it brings me back to another thing, and I'm not going to sit here and discount anybody out there or discredit anyone, but you know, I know of people that I personally know, and then they're promoting something on social media that I know that's not a reflection of their actual life.
Totally.
But I'm one of 400,000 or 500,000 followers that this person has, so
Totally.
where's the line drawn? It's
Yeah.
scary.
Well, it comes down to marketing, really. You know, like and everyone has a different target audience. So what's right and what's wrong is, and I'm not defending anyone here or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like, from an objective point of view, it's like everything that's being put out there is a form of marketing, right?
Yep.
And everyone has their own audiences. Like, for example, like I have my own audience who resonate with me, and I really try and give them as much value as I can. And then there's that superficial audience that don't really care about that deep motivation and inspiration that I can give them. They're more so focused on, you know, the abs and you know, like the biceps and all of that sort of thing. And I might not resonate with those guys, right? So I truly believe each audience needs to sort of decide who they listen to, and it really is up to them.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, how, you know, there's a lot of crap out there, pretty much, right? However, it's the law of attraction, and we always talk about it on this podcast. It's the law of attraction, and I'm sure the type of people that are getting in touch with you are the real type of people.
Totally, because they know what I stand for, and they know that, you know, when I put things out on my story, I'll openly talk about somebody that's approached me for a 2-week crash diet. And that's not, I won't say to them, you know, sure, I'll take you on, because as bad as it sounds, like, I don't do what I do for the money. You know, I've got a job that looks after me for the money, that I do 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And for this, it's really about aligning people with the same values as me and having people on board with you, so that, you know, giving someone a 2-week crash diet is great. But what are you doing after 2 weeks? Like, why are you wanting to lose the weight just for 2 weeks? Like, shouldn't it be a long-term implementation plan? And, you know, everybody knows that losing weight over a shorter period of time is never going to stick, ever. At one point, you will always blow out. If you lose it, like I lost it over 4.5 years. And that time I just set tiny little goals for myself. At first it was like, okay, I'm going to lose 5 kilos. That's all I wanted to lose. And I said, if I lose 5 kilos, I'll be happy. And then 5 kilos came off, and then 10 kilos came off, and then it kind of just kept on going. And then I stopped weighing myself because I actually liked what I looked like in the mirror. But there are still times now that I look at myself in the mirror and see someone that's 60 kilos heavier. There are always times, like I'll go in and try something on and be like, I look fat.
Yep.
And that sticks with you, and that'll stay with you. But it's just a reminder to acknowledge who you were and who you're not anymore, and just move forwards with it and just kind of keep rolling through the paces.
Acknowledging your actual transformation, because I think going back into business, I think we forget, it could be in any aspect of your life, you forget where you actually came from and how far you've really come. And I say this to you all the time, you have good days and you have bad days, but
Totally.
don't ever forget how far you have come. Like, what about 5 years ago when you were all the way back there, and look at you now and all the things that you've done along the way to be a better person, whatever it is, in business, in health, in wellness, in life, whatever that transformation might mean to you. But it's a lifestyle change, isn't it? It's a gradual change, and it's a long-term journey. And I think that's why transformations are so rare and so difficult, because if it's not long-term, then it's probably not for you, and you need to, if it's not inbuilt in your purpose, then it's not going to really happen.
I also think quickly on that, the fact that your, transformations, especially in the fitness industry, a transformation is like mine. 60 kilos, like it's a huge weight loss, and I think a lot of people won't acknowledge those small transformations, and I think that's what I encourage with all of my clients and all of my followers is acknowledge those small wins along the way. Like I started, like I said, setting myself tiny little goals along the way, and it's the same as in business or in health, in that acknowledge how far you've come, and it doesn't matter if you've gone from like broke to a billionaire.
Yeah.
Or anorexic to healthy. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be small transformations, and I think neither one is more superior than the other, because I think a transformation in itself the definition has got lost with fitness, and people seeing so many changes and huge changes and drastic changes of people going from tiny to overweight to then healthy. And for me, it's about, acknowledging those smaller transformations as well, because, you might only be a 65 kilo woman that's healthy, but the changes that you've made, you might actually not change weight. Like in the past year, I know I've not changed weight, but I've become fitter, I've become faster, I've become stronger. And they're transformations within themselves. That are smaller, that aren't as visible, and I think they need to be acknowledged as well.
It's funny how you say celebrate the small wins, right? Because we've got our business in property. It spans over, you can buy an investment property for like 300 grand, or you can do literally a $10 million, development further down the track. So the product offering and all in between, it's just this massive product offering, right? And people see a lot of the bigger guys with the portfolios, or even people look at my portfolio and they go, I want that, right? And I go, okay, well, you need to start with at least getting, maybe a $350,000 property.
Totally.
And they look at that as like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I just want to They want to get to the end goal, right? So they don't think about the process. But in actual fact, like getting that first $350,000 property is a massive deal, right? You need to celebrate that. Like my first property cost me 340 grand, right? 10 years ago.
We celebrated that.
Yeah, it was such a big achievement. I had to work 3 jobs, and I didn't sleep to save for the deposit. Like I really struggled, and it was a big achievement for me.
Totally.
So I had to. Those little wins along the way will lead up to something really, really big. So it's the same in fitness, really, right? But you said, I just wanted to get 305 kilos. Right, and then you celebrated that.
Totally.
And you were like, wow, I want to keep going.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps you going, those small wins, right?
And I think, had I have set myself a goal of losing 60 kilos, that would never have happened. But I think that, because I broke it down into small bite-sized chunks, it was easier to manage and easier to kind of say, okay, well, I just need to get to this and then I'm good. And then I keep going and then I'm good. I think that's, it's so much easier to swallow when you break it down into small bite-sized chunks.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Well, guys, that's going to wrap us up this week. We're scraping the barrel now for time, which is good. It's been a fantastic podcast. Thank you very much.
Hours,
yeah, definitely. And I think that conversation could go another 45, 2 hours. 2 hours. But,
what an inspiration.
Yeah. No,
thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
How do they find you? Tell them how do they find you?
On Instagram at Hayley Westoby, or on my website at hayleywestoby.com.
We'll do some promos on our stories tomorrow, so watch out for all of our stories, and we'll direct you to Hayley's website, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah,
the works.
Don't forget, guys, subscribe to the podcast as well. Grow your future with Luxland, I should say. If you've got any questions, email us, info@luxland.com.au, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.